Hey, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Q. It's about that time we get down and do what it do. Look, split number 1 is nearing an end for ALGS season number 3, and if you follow your boy on Twitter, you might know a thing or two about my preseason predictions, so I figured with split number 1 nearing an end, let's go ahead and take a look. Where was I right? Where was I incredibly wrong? And what should we be keeping an eye out for heading into this last week and a half of ALGS split number 1? Let's get it. Now, the NA and EMEA region, those are a little bit of a different conversation right now since technically there's a little bit more than a week left. So we're going to go ahead and do those last. But what we're going to start off with here is going to be the APAC South region because, man, was I on the money in this region. And it makes sense seeing that I casted a couple of pro tournaments and things heading into the ALGS season. So admittedly, I would have the best pulse on this region. But even with that, and even though I did tell Fallout to keep an eye out for the boys from Chicken Sandwich, I expect this. I wouldn't have been surprised if you told me heading into the last week that maybe they'd be in top 4, but they're not 4, they're not 3, they're not 2, but they're in that top spot with a very nice cushion as well. Now, at this point, they have pretty well solidified their spot for LAN as they're 8 points up on DIWA United, who's in that second place spot. DIWA United also being the only team I didn't really talk about as far as in the preseason, but they've been looking really, really good here recently. Otherwise, rounding out the top 5 right now are EXO, Moist, and Boogie Borders. Now, Dreamfire can insert themselves into this conversation because they do have a double session this weekend, and depending on how they do, could slide up in here, but it's going to be tough. Otherwise, Dreamfire and the rest of the teams are going to have to capitalize during the regionals in order to qualify based off of that. And that's also going to include one of these 5 teams here as well. More than likely going to be Boogie Borders just because they haven't quite admittedly looked the same since they lost Pricey, but maybe, just maybe Moist Esports, they might need to qualify for a LAN based off of winning their regionals, and that's something I don't think anyone would have seen out of the region. Now, as far as for APAC North though, I am going to first and foremost have to apologize to my homie Moonavelli and the Crazy Raccoon fans. Don't know how I managed to forget about them in my preseason predictions with as much as my homie talks about them, but worth noting, I did call Fnatic continuing to reign supreme in the region, although they do have to worry about Enterforce 36 coming in hot on their tails. Now, where I was wrong in APAC North, however, I may have admittedly fallen in love a little bit with the story of the Pulverex gang out in Raleigh, seeing what they were able to do as a duo, hoping that they might be able to run it back at a LAN as a trio. And while that is still a possibility, I'm sure even the team from Pulverex would tell you they haven't really been playing their best Apex, but they could still use a couple of good finishes, a couple of strong finishes in their doubleheader weekend this weekend, and they could qualify off of placement as well. They can make it happen, but it ain't going to be easy. All right. Now, in South America, I'm also going to have to be honest up front. I'm a big Godfire fan, and they've been playing pretty well thus far. I mean, they're sitting number 3 going into that last week, but they do have to worry about Team Kick, who is in their region, and they could potentially knock them out of that top 4 position. But while we're talking about the South American region, got to give a big shout out to Team Singularity. They've got the most points out of any ALGS team thus far in Season 3, and quite frankly, it ain't even close. I'm going to be really excited to see what they do when it comes time for LAN. And I'm also going to have to apologize to the fans from the South American region just because I'm trying to get more acquainted to the region, but admittedly with my schedule, it's just the hardest for me to keep up with. But I definitely make sure to tune in whenever I can because there is some vastly underrated talent in the region down south, I'll tell you what. But now for the regions that technically have a little bit more time than 1 week left because of how broadcast schedules work, let's talk about NA and EMEA, all right? Now, as far as when I'm recording this is before the start of the second to last week for NA, so let's start there, okay? Oh, man, look, I can explain. All 3 teams, all 3 teams, they still have half of their sessions left, and the Guard was looking really good really early. They just had a really tough third session, which is really hurting them on the scoreboard, especially since they're also missing that additional session that'll get made up during the 5th and 6th weeks. So don't be surprised to see them bounce back up in their rankings. But the 2 that I wanted to talk about here, I'm pretty sure everyone's surprised about. That's going to be Optic and Furia. Now, Optic like Furia, was super slow out of the gate, but unlike Furia, Optics kind of stepped up week after week, getting better with each session, starting to put more points up on the board, and with a couple of strong finishes off these last couple sessions, they could still qualify for LAN. Not sure if this is them like finally catching up to the new meta or the new tempo that we're seeing in the lobbies these days, but Furia kind of started this whole ape fest thing that we see in Apex nowadays, but they're at the risk of relegation. Definitely where I was the most wrong of my preseason takes, but they do also still have 3 sessions left as well, so they could still make something happen. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Furia actually ends up going against Challenger Circuit teams in relegation after split number 1? Or do they end up maybe even qualifying for LAN? You let me know down in the comments below, all right? But as far as for our last region, that's going to be EMEA, and I actually just got done watching some EMEA action right before recording this, and man, today's session was absolutely crazy, man. NA is out here data mining end zones while EMEA is just worried about fragging the F out. Like, up to this point in this season, we had seen a couple of 19 kill games, but today, to start EMEA, we had a 19 kill game from VZN, and then we saw a 21 and a 23 kill game from Aurora and Vex, respectively. Absolutely insane, and it was such a pleasure to watch. Now, admittedly, when it comes to my preseason takes here, the 2 teams that I talked about, KCP and Alliance, they are both in the top 5, but they are also the only 2 teams in the top 5 that have had single days outside of the top 10 for a single session. Actually, Alliance has 2 of them things with a pair of 13 placements. Unlucky. Now, do keep in mind, it does look like the qualifying marker in EMEA is going to be somewhere around that 70-point marker for LAN, so like both teams should be able to hit that qualifier. But if I know anything about these 2 teams, especially KCP, they're going to be trying to get as close to that top spot as possible, and only time will tell. I mean, what do you guys think? Is KCP going to continue to drop, or are we going to see them bounce back? I know as far as on this side of the mic, and Nasky we trust, you know what I mean? But don't just let me know your thoughts on the EMEA region down in the comments below. Let me know what you're looking forward to out of all of the regions. Tell me who I'm sleeping on. Let me know who I'm overhyping. And if you enjoyed the video, do me a huge favor and smack that like button, as that's going to help me get this video in front of more people. And if you're an esportsaholic like your boy, feel free to slap that subscribe button, as we got plenty of plans for the channel here for 2023. And that's going to include like weekly updates and watch parties and stuff like that. All right? Till we catch y'all back over here for the next one, man. Don't forget, with everything crazy going on in the world today, be true, be you, be sincere, game hard and love hard. All right, y'all? It's your boy Q, signing out.
If you ain't show something, you just don't wanna be me, but you will never